evening.
Welcome to LEC Update, the show you never thought you needed, and once you've seen it, you'll know for sure.
I'm Evie de Portere.
And I'm Christy Frierson. It's been a crazy few weeks here at the LEC. Not that you would know, since you thought it would be cool to go CSGO for a bit.
Well, obviously, I've still been keeping up with the LEC.
Oh, well then fill us in on everything we missed.
Gladly. Well, 2020 is not off to a good start, frankly, for anyone. The world is falling apart. There are a million problems. Global warming, EU West was down yesterday, automation is making millions of jobs irrelevant. I'm starting to get worried about my own job. I mean, the last 2 weeks we had a machine host the LEC, and it looked so lifelike. But that all pales in comparison to what I'm about to say. G2 went 0-2 and lost to Schalke. Now, G2 is a team that usually sets records, and that didn't change last week. They just set a different kind of record. With a scoreline of 0-7, Caps set a record for most deaths at 15 minutes in LEC history. To bring us more on that, Indiana Montana is standing by at the G2 Gaming House.
Thanks, Christy. I'm here at G2 Esports Cyber Athletic Arena. I caught up this morning with Grabs, and after a devastating 0-2 loss, he was clearly very agitated. They say they're not going to change anything at all, but are taking the week very seriously, planning to run it back. Now back to you.
Okay, thank you, Indiana.
G2 are doomed. Well, anyway, last weekend was Valentine's Day, and much like how you couldn't find a date, Vitality also couldn't find a win. They did bring back an old ex, though, Steelback. And while he's role swapped to support, many were confused to see that his damage dealt looked exactly the same as it did when he played ADC.
SK also continue to struggle. The only trick they have is making their jungler disappear. Honestly, I can't tell if it's meant to be a trick or a joke.
I'd love to say something funny about Origin too, but you'd have to wait 45 minutes for the punchline. What are you doing?
Oh no, I'd just rather watch paint dry than another Origin mid-game. Well, it's that time of the year again, award season. I mean, you've heard of the Oscars, the Brits.
I was there.
At the Oscars?
No, the Brits.
Medic just told me to put that in. I have no idea what that is. Anyways, none compared to the prestigious event held right here in the LEC studio. Inspired by Rasmus Winther's twin brother, no, not the good one, it's the Craps.
And in tonight's only category for worst tweet of the year, your nominees are Forgiven.
And the winner is Schalke.
Schalke?
Schalke. Speaking of winners, Misfits, they're the hottest team in the LEC, led by my frontrunner for MVP, Voyboy. I mean, what can't this guy do? He's got the hands of a 12-year-old speedcuber and the mind of an astrophysicist. He's the most successful LCS export since Core JJ. He's a specimen of a cyber athlete, a professor of perfect macro, and he is going to lift the LEC trophy this year.
You're an idiot. Do you know that? Ugh. For LEC Update, I'm Evie de Portere.
And I'm Christy Frierson. I'm serious. I'm wearing a suit. You have to take me seriously now? That's what Reddit told me.
Why did I do that? Welcome to Berlin, Germany, home of the LEC. The past few weeks, we've seen a new wave hit the league, and Misfits Gaming and Mad Lions are leading the charge with some massive upsets. We'll see the young lineups rather face off later today in the Battle of the Rookies. And in Ready Check, we'll take a closer look at all things crazy, including Karthus in the jungle. Where did he come from? Are we going to see more of him? We will see. And we also want to check in with who your mid-split MVP is. Now, we'll tell you tomorrow who we have in mind, but we want you to share your mid-split MVP or the candidates at @LEC on Twitter. Go tweet up a storm and we'll see what is up. So yeah, midfield MVP, it's it's already crazy that we're already halfway in the split. I don't know where all the time has gone, and it's getting crazier week after week.
Yeah, I mean, we just continue to see upsets last week. A ton of players come out that we just didn't really have a lot of anticipation for. You know, so many rookies really performing well. I'm just excited to see how much further they can go.
Yeah, I had to come back to stabilize everything because things are so crazy.
I think to echo that sentiment that Ender just put on, it's like, you know, we're midway, halfway, you know? But we don't know anything yet. Anything can happen, and that's what you want from a league, right?
I mean, right now there are two teams tied with G2 at the top of the standings, so like, I don't know, we'll have to see.
Yeah, you said it already, tons of upsets last week, and if you missed anything, no problem. QuickShot has got you covered.
Thank you very much, Sharks. The first round robin concludes today. Each team in the LEC will have done battle with every single opponent in the league. And right now, like the analyst just said, it is not crystal clear who the best team in Europe truly is. The battle for first is wide open. It's going to be absolutely no surprise to see G2, Fnatic, and OG in the running. G2 and OG are tied at 6 wins and 2 losses, while Fnatic are hot on their heels at 5 and 3. Is anyone surprised to hear that? No, but this isn't the entire picture, because Misfits, Mad Lions, and Rogue are seriously in the discussion for who will claim first after 9 games of play. Misfits surprised the world on their 6-game winning streak. Mad Lions and Rogue have shown they can compete against the best in the field, and these 3 teams are joining Fnatic, G2, and OG tied at either first or second. Misfits sitting in first with G2 and OG, Mad and Rogue joining Fnatic in second. Only 1 game, meaning 1 win or loss, separates all 6 teams. There are 6 teams competing for first after 8 games. It's bonkers. But while the battle for first features the top 6 ranked teams, you might think the playoff picture is complete, and that's simply not true. There are 4 teams that I have not yet spoken about, and 3 of them are not likely to join the race just yet. But 1 team can. XL Esports made enough preseason changes to get us excited, but now they need to show me and you and everybody else something more if they want to contest the other 6. The LEC is in this fantastic situation because these new players are stepping up. These new teams are showing that they can challenge the old guard and secure the wins they need. And last week saw some of the biggest upsets in European history. Let's take a look at them. Misfits took down the undefeated, defending LEC champions G2. This group of rookies, who mostly come from regional leagues, with an imported ADC and a washed-up mid laner, took down G2. They are now on a 6-game winning streak, and we are all wondering where the fairy tale is going. Mad Lions' dominant win over Fnatic only builds on the expectations that they can compete against the strongest teams in Europe. Kazi stepped up against Reckless, and Shadow had a massive influence in their win. But it is their only win against a team above them in the standings. Today, they face Misfits to find out who truly belongs on top. CHK picked up their first win of the split against the defending champions as well, and with a new AD carry Inax. It was Odo Wamne that stole the show on his Aatrox. But for CHK and Odo to join the race with the rest of these teams for playoffs, a lot more of these wins need to happen. At this stage, it is impossible to predict what will happen. It feels like everybody can beat everybody, and in the end, who do you think will win? That's what we're here to find out.
Thank you so much for that QuickShot. Now I feel like I'm also completely caught up, but indeed so many upsets. So I would like to open the floor to a bigger conversation about the state of the league, our expectations, and how some of those expectations have been overthrown so far. When we look at the standings, G2 Esports, Misfits, and Origin are standing at the top of the table, and that in itself is already a surprise.
Yeah, like one of those is not like the others. You expected G2, Fnatic, OG to be at the top of the standings, but Misfits have come really out of nowhere and won their last 6 games in a row, and I just continue to be impressed by what we see from this team.
And I'd like to start, Yamato, with Misfits and with Mad Lions. Mad Lions, of course, the rebranded Splice, a bunch of rookies. Same story for Misfits. How is it that these are the teams that are surprising us so far?
I think what's so unique about these rookie rosters is for the first time in forever, we have the support and the jungle really stepping up. Usually when we have rookies, it's AD carries, mid laners that are popping off and making crazy things happen. But this time around, the intelligence side of the gameplay is coming in there through the rookies for the first time in forever.
Yeah, and it's nice because we always talk about this. There's so many rookies, you know, people coming up through the regional leagues and whatnot, but the proof remains in the pudding. I was very serious for the proof in the pudding, but it is the case, and it just speaks to the tradition they have and the talent in Europe that we have.
Yeah, and I mean, you saw so much of that, I think, from Misfits in their game against G2. You talked about jungle and support. You had, you know, Denik absolutely smashing caps in the bottom lane. You also had Razork on the jungle Echo 2 really showing up. And I think it wasn't just exclusive, like, yes, those players super showed up, but I think Misfits just have really solid teamwork right now. They have a lot of players with something to come in and prove, and you're just seeing how they control vision in their games and play out through their lanes. They've really got what it takes to make an impact here.
Yeah, and they got the best of G2 as the first time to do it last week, and that brings me to G2. We have to talk about them. We're always singing their praises, but now it's a different story, Yamato. 0-2 last week. Bad performance for Caps. Where are we landing on G2?
Honestly, I don't want to jump to conclusions too fast. There's always a question mark. Oh, G2 is trolling, they're just relaxing, they're taking it loose in spring. Always these questions. There will be a point in time where these questions will be like, they won't recover. So in this regard, I want G2 to step up. I hope that the beast is awoken.
Yeah, I mean, the elephant in the room, right, is Caps, and especially that performance against Misfits. And yes, he absolutely ran it down, but I don't think you can look at that one game where that wasn't like an AD carry making mistakes. That was just Caps pretty much trolling in the game, dying so many times. So to me, I say he did that a couple times too when he played in the mid lane. Don't discount the first 3 weeks of play where he looked really good, but do question some of the other mistakes G2 made as a
I
team.
think that is a great point. We see it there. We're not writing him off on the basis of 1 week of performance, but what Yamato brought up there, I also have the inclination to say, hey, it's G2. They are going to bounce back. My fear is when that doesn't creep into the players, you know, and we've seen where that can lead. Now, I don't think they're going to be the team to let it go. I saw Jankos tweeting, for instance, this is going to be a 2-0 week. I think they'll have practiced very hard, specifically for this week.
I hope so. I hope so. The question with Caps is, can he play more champions than the Senna? Because the Senna got nerfed. That he was a phenomenal Senna. Aphelios looked rough. Had some good games, had some bad games. I want to see maybe a Misfortune, maybe some of the other traditional AD carries, maybe some APs. A bigger champion pool for Caps. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, and I look sort of larger picture for G2. How are they actually playing out their games? Because there were still a lot of really good moments in those games, you know, where they were fighting back, where they play side lane super, super well. But the big flaw I saw on this team was getting really aggressive looking for picks in the enemy jungle when, like, there wasn't even objectives on the map. So they were just sort of throwing themselves around looking for kills, and that sort of loose, sloppy play isn't going to fly later in the season.
They need to clean that up. A couple of other teams I want to talk about. First up, Rogue. What are we thinking? Are they actually performing at expectation, above, below? What do you think?
I think how all the analysts spoke about Rogue, including me, we expected this trajectory. Rogue is on the up and up, they're improving. I think the only flaw that they need to fix, that they're always compensating with like 2v3 team fights, 2v5 team fights at Nash with Finn and Larson, is they need to improve their fight selection. Because in most games, there is that one team fight that goes horribly wrong because they get overeager and want to accelerate their gameplay.
Yeah, and I mean, you see this a lot with younger teams especially, and while we did see all of these players in the LEC last year, it's still a lot of younger names. So I'm specifically looking at Vander to sort of lead this team. We know he's a great shot caller for the squad, so it's his brains that really need to come into these fights and be like, yes, that's the one we want to pick out and choose.
Exciting stuff. Now, I know that Misfits is currently on a 6-game winning streak. G2 dropped the ball a little bit. Can we jump to the conclusion that OG is the best well-rounded team in the league? They are still in first, of course, 2 other teams with them. But what do we think?
I would have to say that I think OG is just draft kingdom.
Okay.
We're in a meta right now where draft is so important. And I think it's okay to say, oh, they just drafted better. But I think we need to give them praise for this because it's very, very difficult to always find yourself in a position where you have stronger early games, you have better opportunities to win the game, you have better scaling. That is always the word, the better scaling. But I think OG just happened to draft better than anyone.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I also think that they take very few risks as a team as well, which sort of feeds into this idea. If you are going going to win in the 5 vs 5 play for that. There are some things that I still think this team can improve on. How do they play through side lanes? How do they win games outside of just going for the slow domination over a game and going for these team fights that I think this team will be able to grow into and improve throughout the season?
Yeah, I think that's great because we've seen this from Origin before. You know, they've played a final as well. And then we were talking about the same things. They have their game plan. They have their draft planned out to a T. It's just that we have to keep seeing the evolution because otherwise it might not be enough once again.
I think their weaknesses are glaringly obvious. And I think the coaching staff and Origin as a team, they have enough experience, enough good players, high-level players that can easily attack this issue because we're talking about them, that mid-game. They get upset when we talk about it, their mid-game, and I think they also know it.
Final notes, is there anything we haven't talked about, Ender, that is jumping out to you about the standings?
I mean, honestly, like, apart from, like, the Schalke big upset win over G2, like, nothing is really out of line. I think you could also maybe bring up an Excel in here, too, for a lot of veteran names on this roster to be getting beat out by teams like Mad Lions and Misfits. This is a squad that was put together with the intention of making playoffs, and they quite haven't been able to find that mesh. Right now, they're on the outside looking in, and they still have a way to go.
Yeah, so we're talking a lot about Origin. They are in first place now, but tomorrow they will truly be tested as they are up versus Fnatic in our match of the week.
Always when you have historical matchups like this, these always matter. It might be just 1 point on the board, but it sets a precedent for what is to come. When it comes to Origin, they have a lot of redeeming to do. In a world where the support pool in Europe has been dwindling, I'm happy that Origin took a risk.
Spot lane. Pullback is there. The CC and the fall off on the Graviton. Carzzy now looking to turn this one. Has a lot of safety. Yes, he's going to flash forward. Is it going to be enough to take down Carzzy? The ultimate coming out from the card. This doesn't even need it. First blood for Upset.
This game against Fnatic, it's my chance to prove that I'm one of the best supports in Europe. I think a lot of people have doubted me in the past, and I want to prove them all wrong.
This is just a chance to prove that we are better than Fnatic, even though a lot of people have been rating us below them. I think we're going to show that we're better and shut them up.
And now Alfari being healed up by this Rocky is back on the hunt.
The hook shot comes out, but it's not going to be needed. Alfari with the 1, 2, 3!
At his peak, he looks like he's playing the champion the way it's supposed to be played.
Whipple's biggest nightmare is a player like Alfari. When players make mistakes, he can punish. But against Alfari, he doesn't show any problems in his armor at all. He is ironclad.
Well, you either crack the armor or you scale harder.
There's the big engage. They've knocked back. They've kicked everyone through, but there's nothing you can do. Comp gonna get flipped back. He's running you down.
You can like nearly always know they're going to fight you for like anything.
Someone burns a summoner spell, it's like X marks the spot. That's where we want to be.
Somebody wants to fight, we will take the fight, knowing that the fight is bad, right?
See champion, kill champion? Anyone can do it if you've got the skills.
You just have to like put yourself on enemy vision and hit a side coming to you.
Oh no, Jack Troll, we thought he had a chance to back, but this is not that opportunity. Now has to run away. Comp watching his support die for the second time.
If you want to beat Origin, you pick champions that scale harder, because they're not going to try to beat you. They're trying to beat the map.
They play just very, very aggressive. Too aggressive, I would say, especially Hillesang.
They're going to look to the back line here. This should be a good fight.
Aroma's got no ultimate either. The kick back onto Hillesang. He stays alive for a few seconds longer.
Just like try not to die to the psycho plays and should be good.
Just about to make their way to in a turret, but Nemesis goes in, puts the ultimate down. The barrel from Xerxes comes up. That's a great interrupt. Nicely done by Selfmade, preventing the engage from Destiny, but it's Upset on a rampage with the double. Turns to Whippo, who goes golden and stays alive just a few seconds longer.
I think Origin is type of team that do nothing and at some point they win the game automatically, right? Like they did even versus us.
Every win matters. And if you manage to clinch the second place or even the first place, then you're going to be set up for success.
Got goosebumps off that, especially also of that last line. And it is so important because if you beat a team like OG if you're Fnatic, or Fnatic if you're OG, that's a huge boon for you in the standings, as well for your confidence going into the later stages of the season.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to consider the head-to-head between these two teams, with Fnatic already dropping a game, and how important it is to get those high seedings come playoff time. So this is a big win for Fnatic to try and pick up.
For sure. I was kind of worried, with the words that were being said in the match of the week, saying like self-made, like even if it's bad, we're going to fight anyway. If I'm a coach and I hear that, I'm like, no, please.
Please make it good.
Let's chill your nuggets here a bit,
Yeah, chill your nuggets, okay. Well, when we talk about the top lane, I think that is especially relevant. You heard it there. If he sees an enemy, Hylissang is going to jump on him and try and kill him. Bwipo is much of the same.
Yeah.
Selfmade is much of the same. So when you see this top laner in the context of his team, it could get dicey.
When I think of Bwipo, I think he's the type of player that likes to force mistakes, but not only the enemy's mistakes, also his own. And when I look at Alfari, he's the complete opposite. He's always very consistent, and the level of consistency that he showed, meaning like what is his average level, is just above any top laner in Europe right now.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw this matchup the last time these two
It was bad
teams played.
for Bwipo.
Alfari just absolutely murdered him, right? And he tried to go for the Swain counter pick in the top lane. They sent Selfmade up there early to try and go for a gank, and it just was not enough to shut him down. So Fnatic really need to figure out some way to limit his impact on the game. Otherwise, Alfari's just going to run away with the whole thing.
This clash of styles is also so juicy, right, Yamato? You talked already about OG is kind of the clean, calculated team, has all their ducks in a row, and knows exactly what they're going to do in any given position. Fnatic also has a plan, but they veer off course a lot, and that's what makes them so interesting to watch.
Very interesting, but the thing that highlights what we mentioned before is just Draft Kingdom. I saw Fnatic banning Soraka, LeBlanc, Syndra on blue. That's dangerous. When OG, they will annihilate them right there.
Yeah, we'll see that tomorrow. Super interesting. We'll see if we see Karthus come out tomorrow, and we see if we see him come out this week. He was around last time, and he's turning out to be a pivotal champion in the jungle. Ender, tell us more about the Death Singer.
I can do that. Now, you may have heard a lot of people talking about Karthus. With the introduction of patch 10.3 came the return of the LEC. Today, we're going to be looking at why he came back and what makes him so strong. Now, at the beginning of the year, jungle experience was nerfed while respawn timers were reduced on the camps. Expectations were that this would be a positive for champions like Karthus, who love to farm, but it actually had the opposite effect. For a lot of junglers, ganking and getting kills was the best way to get EXP, rather than just sitting in your jungle and farming. This meant that Karthus couldn't keep up with the high-impact early-game junglers. On 10.3, however, some EXP returned to the camps. Now, as a power-farming jungler, this is very important for Karthus. He wants to get level 6 as fast as possible, and then level 11 as fast as possible, and level 16 as, well, you get the point. Karthus's impact doesn't come from trying to snowball the lanes. It comes from having a global ulti that can change the course of a fight in an instant. It's also important to recognize that Karthus isn't a slouch in the early game either. On top of having one of the fastest clear speeds in the game, his skirmishing power is extremely strong due to the double damage Q's deal to isolated targets. This means you can't just invade him as Lee Sin and win. In fact, sometimes the opposite is true. In Origin's game against Mad, Xerxes invades the enemy jungle on the top side at level 1. Now, why could he do this? Well, a Rek'Sai at level 1 can't stop the wave clear and damage that a Karthus brings, and was therefore forced to give up his top side. For a mage in the jungle, Karthus is actually someone you have to respect at all stages. And he's relevant at all of them, but his most impactful gameplay comes the later he gets into the game. Some would say that's late game, but a good Karthus player can get to level 16 the same time as laners do, or even sooner if he borrows some minions from his low econ laners. His ulti in the late game can win fights single-handedly with its ridiculous scaling and global impact. Now, Karthus also brings AP damage to a comp, which is nice in the current meta because it opens the pool to allow for AD mids like Yasuo, Qiyana, and Sett to be played, who are all very strong. Now, Karthus is a champ I expect to see more of in the coming weeks, so release your mortal coil. Your time has come. Join the chorus of death and hear my song. I sing the word of death. It is written, die by my hand and rise anew. In the end, only the dead shall remain.
Good stuff. I thought you were actually going to burst into a chant. Well done.
Why no voice acting?
In the dead, only... Wait. In the end, I messed it up. In the end, only the dead.
We get the gist. Thank you so much for breaking down Karthus for us. I'm sure we'll be seeing it this year, and maybe this year, of course, but maybe already in our first game, rather. Mad Lions and Misfits face off in our Battle of the Rookies, and these are two of the biggest surprises in the LEC spring split. And I have to say, I was watching in absolute wonder the last couple of weeks at what Misfits has managed to do, not only being able to take G2 down as a first team, but taking down teams from everywhere in the standings. It didn't matter. They found their groove. What has happened to them?
I mean, Misfits just look so much better than when we saw them in that week one. I think they've done such an excellent job, especially in the early mid-game, controlling vision around mid lane, which has just enabled them to give Febvin the resources he needs to carry. And they feel like they just want to fight all the time, and they're really showing up and pulling it off when it matters.
I think the big difference was when I look at the players. I think Febvin and Razork with the 2v2 mid lane. I love 2v2 mid lane and teams that play around it. There's the most central lane. If you play through that, most of your early games are going to be secured. And then the transition into mid to late game is always very, very clean. They manage to take the leads to victories because their team fighting is on point.
Yeah, their teamwork, is something we have talked about for this team. And I think that another player that really feeds into that doesn't necessarily get the amount of praise that he deserves, because let's be honest, there's some bigger names on this roster. Like Danik in the bot lane has been absolutely pivotal on his engaged type champions, the Rakan, we all remember in that game against G2. He is constantly finding the windows to find fights, and it is such a good look for the new player.
I think I would like to add as well that even though, we watch him play against Misfits, we watch him win a couple of games, it's very, very dangerous to overhype them, because I think even though through the bot lane, they won that game against Caps, I think we need to keep in mind that this was on the top of a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I think this is nice because we're in here, the story and Misfits are in there, and you with a level-headed coach experience as an analyst, don't overhype anyone. We have to see. And we'll see more in this game as well. And in the jungle, we also have two Rookie of the Split candidates facing off. And for more on that matchup, here's QuickShot with Shadow.
Hey everybody, QuickShot here, and I'm joined by Shadow from Mad Lions ahead of the game against Misfits. Shadow, you've now got an opportunity to stop the Misfits winning streak, and I think one of the keys is going to be stopping Razork. So first of all, describe his playstyle and maybe how it's different from your own.
I think he's very similar to me. Like, he plays very aggressive, unconventional champion pool. It's going to be fun against him, but I played against him a lot of times over the past few years, so it's going to be fun playing against him in LEC.
So how are you going to stop him? If the two of you have these similar playstyles, you both have maybe a little bit of unconventional picks, what's going to be key to taking him and Misfits down today?
I think it's mostly about around mid lane. Like, he likes to go around mid lane, so we just look to fight a lot.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. It makes it a lot more exciting. Let's talk about that mid lane matchup. Febvin seems to be playing really well this split. How are you going to stop him from continuing to run away with games?
Just camping him.
Oh, clean and simple. All right, so is it going to be a convincing win for Mad Lions today?
For sure.
Well, there we have it. Thank you so much, Shadow. Good luck in the game.
Thank you.
Love it. The plan is clear. Don't mess up. Just camp Febvin and Mad Lions can win the game. I mean, I think it's good advice at least. Shadow has been also a standout player so far. And I love when he says, yeah, we're going to camp mid. He does so much together with his support, right? So I think we can assume that it's going to be Shadow and Kaiser camping that mid lane.
Yeah, and I just love what I see from Shadow as a player. I think he sort of came into the early weeks and had this super creative pathing to try and shut down the enemy jungler. But even just last week, I thought he played very well reactionary in his pathing, getting to his lanes when they were going to be dove, really saving them from tough situations.
And he passes the Lee Sin test. Always with junglers, can they play Lee, can they not? Obviously he does. He plays it very, very well, and I have to agree with the sentiment that Kaiser and, of course, Shadow together just control that mid lane where Humanoid tends to get a bit too wild sometimes.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's really important that they do have this solid jungle support duo, because when you look at the solo lanes, even the bot lane, the AD carry position, you have really like wildly different performances game to game for these players. The consistency isn't quite there, where they can super pop up, and sometimes they really, really don't. So having both, the jungler in Shadow and Kaiser be able to show up every single game is good stuff.
I love what we're seeing from Shadow. A heart to the camera, a nice interview. He's definitely feeling in the zone for this game. Yamato, before you talked about how Misfits are very good at team fighting, and it's definitely a plus in their column. How important do you think the fact is that Shadow and Kaiser, that jungle support duo roaming together, putting pressure on the map, that they're so good at that? How can that offset some of what Misfits is bringing?
I think the big thing, the biggest differential here is Misfits like to play through the mid lane, while I think Humanoid needs to wait for Kaiser and Shadow to show up. So we're going to see the stylistic difference where most likely Mad Lions will play through bottom into mid, because Oroma usually plays Gangplank or is on an island. We don't care about top lane. Boring. Mid lane, we have to make sure that Humanoid is patient, because that's where the key is. If they find a kill early on Humanoid, everything is disrupted.
Yeah, and that just means both teams, and mid laners especially, have to be super aware of bot lane recall timings, right? If one of those supports can get back before the other one, you have to look out for mid lane plays. Otherwise, the game could just blow up.
And so much to think about for all these rookies on stage today. So who is it going to be? Cheeky prediction from you, Mad Lions or Misfits?
Look, Misfits are so hot right now, I think they're just going to be able to continue to ride this wave.
I'm not with you. Mad Lions. Ooh. I'm a believer in numbers, and having 3 on mid lane is better than
6
just 2.
6 in a row isn't good enough? I don't know.
Oh, that's just standings. Who cares about standings? Mad Lions are going to take it. Kaiser and Shadow, bring it home.
All right, let's see what happens against all odds. Misfits and Mad Lions have taken down some of the best teams in the LEC, and today the young lineups go head-to-head in the battle of the rookies.
Thank you very much, Shox. I'm Medic, joined by Frost, and we are in for another day of intense League of Legends action. We're approaching the halfway mark of the split.
Yeah, and I kind of want to pick up right where Shox teed it off to us, the battle of the rookies. And yeah, it is very exciting that we have so much young blood and untested blood on the stage, but I think we need to kind of upgrade them to the big kids table. Yeah. This is a battle of a top of the table. Misfits on a hot run right now. We have so many teams that are tied for second right now, and I think it's finally time to give the honor to Mad Lions and Misfits. Welcome to the Big Kids League. You guys are now top of the table in the LEC, and they're competing to be in that Elite Four.
Yeah, I really feel Mad Lions kind of got overlooked last week. They beat Fnatic. Like, that's not an easy team to take down just because G2 were losing left, right, and center, because Schalke were able to pick up a win, and because Misfits are now 6-0. You cannot rule out the Mad Lions from contention, not only for playoffs, but for one of those top 3 spots.
Yeah, and kind of focusing in on this specific matchup, I love that the analyst desk was talking about that mid lane matchup, the fact that it's going to be Humanoid versus Febiven. That is kind of my featured matchup, and how the junglers are going to interact there, and how the support